At 17, my parents pulled over on a Texas highway, shoved a suitcase into my hands, and drove away. 10 years later, when I became a millionaire, they called me like nothing had happened. And I said yes to dinner, but not for the reason they thought. I was 17 the night my life split in two. The air in the car was thick, too quiet for a family ride, too loud with everything left unsaid. My father's hands gripped the steering wheel so tight his knuckles looked bone-white under the dashboard light. My mother stared out the window like I wasn't even there. We slowed down on a stretch of highway outside Austin. The kind of road where the only sound was the wind tearing past and the distant hum of semis. My father stopped the car. "Get out," he said. His voice was flat, cold, like he was reading a line he had practiced 100 times. I blinked. "What?" He popped the trunk and threw my suitcase onto the gravel. The zipper was half open, clothes spilling out into the dirt. "You're a burden, Jonah. You've embarrassed us long enough. Don't call us again." My chest tightened. I turned to my mother, desperate for even a flicker of hesitation, one look, one sign that she didn't agree. But she just folded her arms, lips pressed thin, and said nothing. "Please," my voice cracked, breaking against the silence. "I can do better. The car door slammed shut. The tires spun gravel into my shoes as they drove away. The red glow of the taillights faded into the Texas night until I was standing in pure darkness, one hand on a broken suitcase, the other shaking with the realization that I had no home anymore. That was the night my parents erased me. That first night, I dragged my suitcase down the shoulder of the highway until the city lights finally came into view. I spent the last of my cash on a motel room that smelled like mildew and cigarettes. The ceiling fan clattered above me, mocking me with every turn. I was 17 and already on my own. The weeks after were brutal. I begged for shifts anywhere that would take me. A small phone repair shop on the east side finally hired me to sweep floors and clean cracked screens. The pay was barely enough for rent on a single-room unit with stained carpet and a heater that coughed more than it worked. Nights were the worst. The walls were so thin I could hear my neighbor arguing with her boyfriend, the thud of footsteps upstairs, the laughter of families down the hall. I'd sit on the edge of my bed, eating noodles straight from the cup, wondering if this was all my life would ever be. But something in me refused to quit. I borrowed an old laptop from the shop owner and spent nights teaching myself how to code from free forums and YouTube tutorials. My eyes burned from staring at the screen, my fingers cramped from typing, but every line of code felt like a small act of rebellion. Birthdays came and went with no calls, no cake, just me lighting a dollar store candle on a cupcake and whispering happy birthday to myself. Holidays meant double shifts, mopping floors while families filled restaurants with laughter. 10 years passed like that. Work, study, save, survive. I was invisible to the world, and especially to the two people who had promised to love me unconditionally. But in that silence, in that loneliness, I was being forged. It started small, almost laughably small. One afternoon at the repair shop, a local store owner came in, frustrated. His cash register had broken again. He muttered, "If only someone could make something simple to track sales without these ancient machines." That night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I opened my beat-up laptop and began sketching ideas. I didn't have fancy tools, just raw determination and free tutorials. Weeks later, I showed up at his store with a basic app I had written myself. "Try this," I said, hands trembling as I held out my old phone. The app was clunky, but it worked. He used it. Then he told his friend who ran a bakery, then a florist. Within months, I was installing my little program on old tablets across town. They weren't just paying me, they were depending on me. I took on every job I could, coding late into the night, drinking dollar store coffee until my hands shook. Each update I made, each bug I fixed, was like proof that I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was building. By my mid-20s, I wasn't sweeping floors at the shop. I was running my own. I registered a small company, Raise Systems. One by one, the clients grew. A local grocery chain signed with me, then a regional franchise. Suddenly, the boy abandoned on the highway was being invited into boardrooms. I'll never forget the first time I deposited a check with 6 figures on it. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped it. But I didn't spend it on luxury. I reinvested servers, software engineers, lawyers. And slowly, without even realizing it, I had built an empire out of the silence my parents left me with. But with success comes noise. The local paper ran a story. From homeless teen to tech millionaire. And that's when the past I thought I had buried, came knocking again. The headline had barely settled online when my phone lit up one evening. At first, I almost ignored it. Unknown numbers and old friends had been popping up nonstop since the article. But when I glanced at the screen, my breath caught. Mom. For 10 years that name had been nothing but a ghost. A memory buried under layers of silence. My hand hovered, cold and shaking, before I pressed answer. "Jonah," she said, her voice syrupy, sweet, rehearsed. "We've missed you so much." For a moment, it was like I'd been dragged back to that highway, to the night she wouldn't even look at me. I had imagined this call 1,000 times, her apologizing, her begging for forgiveness. But instead, her tone was light, casual, as if the last decade had been a simple misunderstanding. Then my father's voice came on, cheerful in a way that felt forced. "We've been talking, son. Thanksgiving is coming. Why don't you join us for dinner? Family should be together." Family. The word landed like a stone in my chest. 10 years ago, I wasn't family. I was baggage, disposable, and now suddenly I was family again. I almost laughed. Instead, I said calmly, "All right, I'll come." Their relief was immediate, too eager. "That's wonderful, Jonah," my mother gushed. "It will mean so much to us." I hung up, staring at the phone on the table in front of me. My house was quiet, but my mind was louder than ever. I knew exactly what had brought them back. Not love, not regret, money. And if I was going to step back into their world, I wouldn't go empty-handed. The invitation echoed in my mind for days. Part of me wanted, just for a second, to believe they meant it, that after all these years they finally chose me over pride. But the wiser part of me whispered, "Don't be fooled." So I decided to test them. One evening, I dialed their number. My heart pounded, but my voice stayed steady. "Mom, Dad," I began, "there's something you should know before Thanksgiving." There was a pause, then my mother's honeyed voice. "What is it, sweetheart?" I took a breath, letting my lie sound fragile, believable. "The truth is most of the money's gone. I invested in a crypto deal that crashed. What I have left barely covers expenses." For a long moment, silence. Then my father spoke, his tone clipped, almost relieved. "Well, that's unfortunate, but maybe it's better if you don't come this year. No need to put extra stress on anyone." My mother chimed in quickly, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "Yes, darling, focus on yourself. These dinners can be overwhelming. Let's just wait until things are better." I closed my eyes, letting their words sink in. 10 years of silence, broken not by love but by the scent of money. And the moment they believed it was gone, I was already expendable again. The hurt cut sharp, but beneath it something stronger rose. Power. Certainty. I didn't have to wonder anymore. I didn't have to keep asking myself if that call was about reconciliation or greed. They had just given me the answer. I whispered softly into the phone, "Thank you for being honest." And I hung up, staring into the quiet of my home. For the first time, I felt a strange satisfaction. The mask had slipped. Their true faces were finally revealed. And if they thought they could play me, they had no idea what I was about to bring to Thanksgiving. The house looked almost exactly the same as the night they left me on the highway, except now it was dressed up for the holiday. Fairy lights wrapped neatly around the porch railings, a wreath hung perfectly centered on the front door. My mother greeted me with a smile stretched too wide to be real. "Jonah," she gasped, pulling me into a hug that felt staged. "You look wonderful. Money agrees with you." My father appeared behind her, his hand heavy on her shoulder. "You've done well for yourself," he said, "better than we ever expected." Inside, the dining room looked like a magazine spread. Turkey, stuffing, bowls of vegetables perfectly arranged. I sat at the table, their chatter buzzing around me, each compliment carrying a hidden barb. "You always had potential," my father said between bites. "You just needed guidance." My mother added quickly, "Imagine how far you could have gone if you'd listened back then." I smiled politely, letting the words slide past me like smoke. But as the plates cleared and dessert appeared, their tone shifted. The warmth drained from their voices, replaced with calculation. My mother set down her fork, folded her hands. "Jonah, we wanted to talk to you about something important." My father leaned forward, lowering his voice. "The truth is, we've hit a rough patch. Nothing serious, just a temporary setback." She cut in too quickly. "We need your help. About $500,000 to steady things, to save the family." The word family hung in the air, bitter on my tongue. I reached calmly into my bag, pulled out a plain manila folder and slid it across the table. My father frowned. "What's this?" "Open it," I said. My mother's fingers trembled as she lifted the cover. Mortgage records, overdue notices, lawsuit filings. Her face drained of color as she flipped each page. My father leaned closer, his jaw tightening when he saw the notations about missing community fund money. I leaned back, my voice quiet but sharp enough to cut. "I know everything, the debts, the lawsuits, the donations that disappeared under your watch, the empire you parade around town, built on sand." The room went silent except for the soft hum of the chandelier above us. Then the storm broke. "Jonah, please," my mother's voice cracked, tears smearing her careful makeup. "We didn't want you to see us like this. We were trying to keep everything afloat." My father's face hardened, his voice rising. "Who fed you this? You've always been too nosy for your own good." He slammed a fist against the table, rattling the silverware. I stayed still, watching them unravel. Their performance, begging, denying, raging, was almost theatrical. Finally, I stood, pushing my chair back slowly. "My surprise for you tonight is simple. I won't be your savior, not now, not ever." The folder remained on the table, a mirror reflecting everything they'd tried to bury. Their eyes followed me as I picked up my coat, and for the first time in 10 years, I was the one walking away. Their voices chased me down the hallway, my mother's sobs tangled with my father's sharp commands. "Jonah, wait! You'll regret this." But none of it reached me the way it once would have. I slipped my coat on slowly, every button fastening like a final choice. When I opened the door, the crisp Texas night hit my face. Cold, clean, honest. The dining room lights spilled into the entryway, but I didn't turn back. For years, I had imagined what it would feel like to be wanted by them again, to hear my name spoken with warmth, to sit at the table like family. And now I knew the truth. Their love had a price tag. Their welcome came with conditions. As the door clicked shut behind me, their shouts muffled, I felt the weight I had carried for a decade begin to lift. I walked down the driveway, my shoes crunching against the thin frost. Every step felt lighter than the last. I no longer carried the ache of unanswered questions, no longer craved the approval they had dangled like bait. At the curb, I paused. The quiet neighborhood around me was still, almost peaceful. I thought of the life I had built, the long nights coding, the ramen dinners, the first tiny paycheck that proved I could stand on my own. And for the first time in 10 years, I smiled. I didn't need their table. I didn't need their version of family. I had built my own future out of silence and survival. And walking away tonight wasn't loss. It was freedom.